The Great Hall on Nexus Prime stretched for miles in every direction. Its crystal walls rose so high that clouds formed near the ceiling. This was where the Galactic Hegemony made decisions that affected 3,000 star systems and trillions of living beings. General Kang Minho stood at attention with the other military leaders. His dark uniform looked plain next to the bright robes and metal armor worn by aliens from across the galaxy. He was smaller than most of them, too. While creatures like Admiral Zethvar stood 12 feet tall with 6 arms, Kang Minho looked almost human. That was because he was from a world much like Earth. The Emperor Vorthak entered the hall. His body was made of living crystal that changed colors as he moved. Purple light flowed through him when he was angry. Gold light meant he was pleased. Right now, red light pulsed through his crystalline form. Everyone in the hall knew what red meant. Someone was going to die today. "My generals," the Emperor's voice echoed like breaking glass. "We have a problem." The holographic display in the center of the hall lit up. It showed a small blue and green planet orbiting a yellow star. Kang Minho had seen the reports about this world. The beings who lived there called it Earth. "These humans," Vorthak continued, "refuse to join our empire. They say they want to remain independent. They think they can say no to us." Angry sounds filled the hall. General Morgux, a creature covered in black scales, slammed his clawed fist on the table. "Crush them. Show them what happens when they defy the Empire." "Yes," agreed Admiral Zethvar, waving all 6 of his arms. "My fleet can turn their world to ash in 1 day." Kang Minho stayed quiet. He had learned long ago that speaking too quickly in these meetings could be dangerous. The Emperor liked to hear his generals get excited about war, but he also valued careful thinking. The holographic display changed to show images of human cities, ships, and weapons. Everything looked simple compared to Imperial technology. Human ships moved slowly through space. Their weapons seemed weak. Their cities had no energy shields. "Look at them," laughed General Morgux. "They still use chemical rockets to leave their planet. Our scouts report they have only been in space for less than 100 years. We have been traveling between stars for 10,000 years. Their weapons are pathetic," added Admiral Zethvar. "They shoot small metal bullets instead of plasma bolts. They have no battle mechs, no planet destroyers, no reality warpers." Commander Veltar, whose species looked like giant insects, clicked his mandibles together in amusement. "They don't even have one unified government. The planet is split into hundreds of separate nations that fight each other over resources." The Emperor's crystal body pulsed with golden light. He was pleased by what he heard. "Tell me more about their military strength." The intelligence officer stepped forward. Her name was Sub-Commander Rixala, and her blue skin glowed softly in the hall's light. "The humans have approximately 8 billion individuals on their planet. Their largest military force has only 2 million active soldiers. We have 50 million battle-ready troops in our 3rd fleet alone." "What about their technology?" the Emperor asked. "Primitive," Rixala replied. "Their fastest ships cannot exceed light speed. Their strongest weapons can barely crack a moon. They have no force fields, no matter transporters, no time manipulation devices." General Morgux stood up, his scales rattling with excitement. "Your Majesty, we could conquer this world with 1 battle group. Send me with 50 ships and I will have their surrender in 1 day." "No," Admiral Zethvar interrupted. "Let me take my dreadnought fleet. We can demonstrate Imperial power by destroying one of their cities from orbit. The rest will surrender immediately." The generals began arguing about who would get the honor of conquering Earth. Each one wanted to add this victory to their record. Kang Minho listened but did not join the discussion. Something about the whole situation bothered him. Emperor Vorthak raised one crystal hand and the hall fell silent. "I have made my decision. General Kang Minho will lead the reconnaissance mission." All eyes turned to Kang Minho. He felt the weight of their stares. Some looked surprised. Why choose the quiet general instead of the loud ones? Others looked jealous. This would be an easy victory that would bring great honor. "General Kang Minho," the Emperor continued, "you will take a stealth ship to Earth, study their defenses, learn their weaknesses, find the best way to break their resistance quickly." The Emperor's crystal form pulsed with red light again. "I want this conquest to be swift and complete. These humans must learn that no one refuses the galactic hegemony." Kang Minho bowed low. "It will be done, Your Majesty." "You have 3 cycles to complete your mission," Vorthak said. "When you return, we will launch the invasion. I want every human city mapped, Every military base identified, every leader located. The Emperor turned to address the entire hall. The humans think they can ignore us because they are far from our core worlds. They think distance will protect them. They are wrong. We have conquered species 10 times stronger than these weak mammals. We have destroyed civilizations 100 times older than theirs. The crystal being's voice grew louder. The humans have something we need. A perfect world with clean air, fresh water, and rich soil. Their planet will make an excellent colony for our expanding population. And if they will not share it willingly, the Emperor's form blazed with red light. Then we will take it from them. Cheers filled the great hall. Generals pounded tables and roared approval. The aliens were excited about another easy conquest, another world to add to their vast empire. But Kang Minho did not cheer. He stood quietly thinking about the mission ahead. In 3 cycles he would need to return with information that would help destroy an entire species. It was not the first time the Empire had given him such orders, but something felt different about this assignment. Maybe it was because the humans looked almost like his own people. His homeworld had been conquered by the Empire decades ago. He remembered being young when the Imperial ships arrived. He remembered the choice his people were given: join the Empire or be destroyed. Most chose to join. Kang Minho had been selected for military training because he showed tactical skill. Over the years, he had proven himself in battle after battle. He had earned respect and rank through service to the Empire. But he never forgot what it felt like to watch foreign ships appear in his home sky. As the meeting ended and generals filed out of the hall, Kang Minho remained behind. He studied the holographic images of Earth one more time. The blue oceans, green continents, and white clouds reminded him of his own lost homeworld. "Is there a problem, General?" The Emperor's voice made Kang Minho turn around. "No, Your Majesty. I was just studying the target." "Good," Vorthak said, his crystal form now glowing with soft gold light. "You are my most reliable general, Kang Minho. That is why I chose you for this mission. The others see only an easy victory, but I know you see potential problems before they become real threats." Kang Minho nodded. "I will be thorough in my investigation." "See that you are," the Emperor replied. "The humans may look weak, but we have learned not to underestimate any species. Even the smallest creature can bite if cornered." As Kang Minho left the Great Hall, he wondered if the Emperor knew how true those words might be. The stealth ship Silent Hunter moved through space like a ghost. Its black hull absorbed light instead of reflecting it. Advanced technology made it invisible to most sensors. General Kang Minho stood on the bridge watching the blue planet grow larger on the main screen. "Approaching Earth's solar system, General," announced Lieutenant Park Ji-hoon from his position at the controls. Park Ji-hoon had served with Kang Minho for 8 years. Like the general, he came from a conquered world. His people had been absorbed into the Empire when he was just a child. "All scans show normal activity," reported Navigator Choi Yuna from her station. She was younger than the other 2, but her tactical mind impressed everyone who worked with her. "I count several hundred human vessels in orbit around their planet. Most appear to be cargo ships and research stations." Kang Minho studied the display. The human space activity looked busy but not military. Ships moved between the planet and its single moon, carrying supplies and equipment. Everything seemed peaceful. "Any sign they have detected us?" he asked. "No, sir," Choi Yuna replied. "Their sensor technology cannot penetrate our stealth systems. We could park next to one of their space stations and they would never know we were there." The Silent Hunter passed through Earth's outer atmosphere without triggering any alarms. Kang Minho had expected to see orbital defense platforms, weapon satellites, or patrol ships. Instead, he saw scientific equipment, communication arrays, and what appeared to be civilian installations. "This is strange," Park Ji-hoon said. "Where are their military defenses? Even primitive species usually guard their homeworld better than this." "Maybe they are hiding them," suggested Choi Yuna. "Some species camouflage their weapons to look like civilian structures." Kang Minho nodded. That made sense. The Empire often used similar tactics. "Begin deep scans. Look for hidden energy signatures, concealed weapon systems, anything that might indicate military installations." For the next several hours, they mapped Earth's orbital space in detail. The results were puzzling. Most of what they found really was civilian. Weather monitoring stations, communication satellites, scientific research platforms. The few military installations they detected were small, and appeared focused on watching other humans rather than defending against alien invasion. "General," Choi Yuna said, "I think we need to get closer to understand what we're seeing." Kang Minho agreed. The silent hunter descended into Earth's atmosphere. They flew over vast oceans, green forests, and brown deserts. The planet was beautiful, with clean air and abundant water. No wonder the Empire wanted to claim it. As they approached the first major human city, Kang Minho expected to see massive defensive walls, weapon towers, and military checkpoints. Instead, he saw something that made no sense at all. Millions of humans moved through the city streets in perfect organization, but there were no guards directing them. No central authority seemed to control their movement. Yet somehow the flow of people worked smoothly. Vehicles traveled on designated paths without colliding. Pedestrians crossed at specific locations in coordinated patterns. "How are they doing this?" Park Ji-hoon asked, staring at the display. "There must be some kind of mind control system." Choi Yuna ran detailed scans. "No, sir. No electronic signals controlling their behavior. No chemical agents in the air. No psychic influences that our equipment can detect." Kang Minho watched in fascination as the human city functioned like a perfectly tuned machine. In the Empire, such coordination required strict military discipline and constant supervision. Citizens moved only when ordered, worked only at assigned tasks, lived only where permitted. But these humans seemed to coordinate themselves. They followed complex patterns of behavior without anyone forcing them to do so. It was like watching a dance where everyone knew the steps without being taught. "Move us to observe their military training facilities," Kang Minho ordered. They found a large installation where human soldiers practiced combat maneuvers. What they observed there was even more disturbing than the city streets. Imperial military doctrine emphasized rigid hierarchy and absolute obedience. Soldiers waited for orders from their superiors before taking any action. Battle plans came from high command and were followed exactly, with no deviations allowed. The human soldiers did something completely different. Their commanders gave general objectives, but individual soldiers made tactical decisions on their own. When situations changed unexpectedly, human troops adapted without waiting for new orders. Small groups worked together to solve problems that their leaders had not anticipated. "This is impossible," Park Ji-hoon muttered. "How can their military function without proper command structure?" Kang Minho was beginning to wonder the same thing. He had studied warfare for decades. Every successful military force in the galaxy operated on the same basic principles: clear hierarchy, strict discipline, and absolute obedience to superior officers. Yet somehow, these humans achieved tactical coordination through something the Empire had never encountered. Their soldiers seemed to think independently while still working toward common goals. "Show me their weapon systems," Kang Minho commanded. The scans revealed human military hardware that looked primitive by Imperial standards. Their tanks were slow and lightly armored. Their aircraft could barely break the sound barrier. Their personal weapons fired simple projectiles instead of energy beams. But there was something about how humans used these weapons that caught Kang Minho's attention. They modified their equipment constantly, adapting tools for new purposes. They combined different technologies in creative ways. Most importantly, they pushed their machines beyond normal limits through pure determination. A human pilot might coax extra performance from an old aircraft by understanding every detail of how it worked. A tank crew could use their vehicle's weaknesses as tactical advantages. Infantry soldiers turned simple rifles into precision instruments through endless practice and intuitive skill. "General," Choi Yuna said quietly, "I don't think these weapons are as primitive as they appear." "What do you mean?" Kang Minho asked. "Our plasma rifles are more powerful than their bullets," she explained. "But our weapons work the same way every time. Point, pull trigger, target destroyed. Human weapons seem to work differently depending on who uses them and how they use them." Kang Minho considered this. In Imperial armies, any soldier could pick up any weapon and use it at standard efficiency. Weapons were designed to be simple and predictable, but human weapons seemed to become extensions of the people who carried them. As night fell over the continent they were observing, the silent hunter detected unusual activity. Natural disaster alerts were broadcasting across human communication networks. A massive earthquake had struck a populated region on the other side of the planet. "Set course for the disaster zone," Kang Minho ordered. "I want to see how humans respond to emergency situations." The stealth ship crossed the planet in minutes. What they found there challenged everything Kang Minho thought he knew about intelligent species. The earthquake had devastated a major city. Buildings had collapsed, infrastructure was destroyed, and thousands of humans were trapped or injured. But instead of chaos and panic, Kang Minho witnessed something extraordinary. Without any orders from their government, humans from across the planet began responding to the crisis. Rescue teams mobilized from distant cities. Medical personnel traveled hundreds of miles to help. Ordinary citizens organized supply convoys and relief efforts. "This makes no tactical sense," Park Ji-hoon said, studying the sensor readings. "Why are they helping people they don't know? What do they gain from this?" In the Empire, disaster response was handled by designated government agencies. Citizens were expected to await official assistance and follow orders from authorized personnel. Personal initiative was discouraged because it could interfere with organized relief efforts. But these humans acted on their own without waiting for permission or orders. They seemed driven by some internal motivation that Kang Minho could not understand. They risked their own safety to help complete strangers, with no apparent reward for their actions. "General," Choi Yuna said softly, "I think we need to observe them more closely. There's something about human behavior that doesn't match any species in our database." Kang Minho nodded. The initial reconnaissance was supposed to be simple: identify military targets, catalog weapons, map defensive positions. But the more he watched these humans, the more questions he had. They were not like any enemy the Empire had ever faced. Their apparent weaknesses might actually be signs of something much more dangerous, a kind of strength that Imperial strategists had never encountered. "Continue monitoring their emergency response," he ordered. "I need to understand what drives these humans to act this way." As the silent hunter observed rescue operations through the night, Kang Minho began to realize that his mission was becoming much more complicated than anyone had expected. The rescue operations continued for days. General Kang Minho kept the silent hunter in orbit above the disaster zone, watching human behavior with growing confusion. Every hour brought new examples of actions that made no sense according to Imperial understanding of intelligent species. "General, look at this," Navigator Choi Yuna called from her station. Her voice carried a note of disbelief. "The humans in the unaffected regions are sending supplies to the disaster area. Food, medicine, equipment, even money. They're doing this without any government orders." Kang Minho studied the data streams flowing across her display. Resource convoys were moving from all over the planet toward the earthquake zone. The coordination was perfect, but there was no central authority directing it. Somehow 8 billion humans were organizing themselves to help people they had never met. In the Empire, citizen resources belong to the state, Lieutenant Park Ji-hoon observed. "No one can redistribute materials without official authorization. How are these humans allowed to act independently?" "Maybe they're not allowed," Choi Yuna suggested. "Maybe they're breaking their own laws." But further investigation revealed that human governments were not stopping this behavior. In fact, their leaders were encouraging it. Politicians praised citizens for helping. Military forces worked alongside civilian volunteers. The entire human response system seemed designed to support individual initiative rather than control it. "This is the opposite of how civilized societies function," Park Ji-hoon muttered. "Individual action leads to chaos. Only central authority can maintain order." Kang Minho had believed the same thing for his entire career. Every successful species in the galaxy organized itself around strong leadership and citizen obedience. The alternative was anarchy and destruction. Yet somehow humans had created a functioning civilization based on principles that should have torn their society apart. They made independent decisions, acted on personal initiative, and somehow achieved coordination that rivaled the most disciplined Imperial forces. "Focus our scans on the rescue teams," Kang Minho ordered. "I want to understand what motivates individual humans to risk themselves for strangers." What they observed over the following days shook Kang Minho's understanding of intelligent behavior. Human rescue workers pushed themselves beyond physical limits to save people trapped in collapsed buildings. Medical personnel worked without sleep for days straight. Volunteers risked their lives entering dangerous areas to search for survivors. One incident particularly caught his attention. A human rescue worker named Kim Tae-hyun was searching through the ruins of a collapsed school. His team leader, Lee Sumin, ordered everyone to evacuate because the remaining structure was about to collapse completely. All the other rescuers obeyed the order and moved to safety. But Kim Tae-hyun refused to leave. "There's still someone in there," he told Lee So-min. "I can hear crying from the basement level." "The building will come down in minutes," Lee So-min replied. "You'll be killed if you stay." "Then I'll work faster," Kim Tae-hyun said, and disappeared back into the ruins. Kang Min-ho watched in amazement as this single human continued searching, while tons of concrete and steel groaned and shifted above him. Kim Tae-hyun had no orders to disobey his superior. He had no personal connection to whoever might be trapped inside. He gained nothing by risking his life, yet he stayed. 10 minutes later, Kim Tae-hyun emerged from the building carrying a small human child, just seconds before the entire structure collapsed into rubble. Both the rescuer and the child survived. "Why?" Park Ji-hoon asked, staring at the display. "Why would he do that? What possible benefit could justify such risk?" Choi Yuna had been monitoring human communications during the rescue. According to their broadcasts, Kim Tae-hyun said he did it because someone's still in there. That appears to be his complete explanation. Kang Min-ho replayed the incident several times, analyzing every detail. In the Empire, such behavior would be considered a mental defect. Soldiers were trained to follow orders precisely to avoid chaos and casualties. Individual heroics were discouraged because they disrupted organized operations. But among humans, Kim Tae-hyun's actions were celebrated as heroic. Other humans praised his choice to disobey orders and risk his life. Their leaders honored him as an example for others to follow. "Continue monitoring human cultural communications," Kang Min-ho instructed. "I need to understand the thinking behind such behavior." Over the next several days, Choi Yuna analyzed thousands of human entertainment productions, movies, books, songs, and stories. What she discovered was even more disturbing than the rescue operations. General, human fiction is filled with stories about individuals who sacrifice themselves for others, she reported. These aren't military heroes following orders. They're ordinary people who choose to help strangers at personal cost. She showed him examples, stories of humans who died protecting children from danger, workers who gave their lives to prevent disasters that would harm others, ordinary citizens who risked everything to save people they barely knew. More importantly, Choi Yuna continued, these stories aren't government propaganda designed to encourage loyalty to the state. They're entertainment that humans create voluntarily. They seem to genuinely admire this kind of self-sacrifice. This revelation struck at the heart of everything Kang Min-ho thought he knew about civilization. In the Empire, loyalty was maintained through a combination of rewards for obedience and punishment for defiance. Citizens served the state because they were forced to do so, but humans appeared to serve each other willingly. They celebrated individuals who chose to help others, even when such choices violated orders or social expectations. Their entire culture seemed built around the idea that personal sacrifice for strangers was noble and praiseworthy. "Show me their military history," Kang Min-ho commanded. The data that came back confirmed his growing fears. Human military forces had a long tradition of soldiers who disobeyed orders to save comrades, officers who sacrificed themselves to protect their troops, and ordinary fighters who performed extraordinary acts of courage with no expectation of reward. More troubling still, human armies seemed to become stronger when they suffered losses. Units that had experienced heavy casualties often fought more fiercely than fresh troops. Soldiers who had seen friends die became more determined rather than more fearful. This is the opposite of normal psychological patterns, Park Ji-hoon observed. Combat losses should weaken morale and reduce fighting effectiveness. How do humans become stronger through defeat? Kang Min-ho was beginning to understand, and the realization terrified him. Imperial forces were powerful because they were disciplined, organized, and equipped with superior technology. But they fought primarily because they were ordered to fight. Their motivation came from external authority. Human forces seemed to fight for different reasons entirely. They were motivated by bonds to each other, rather than obedience to commanders. When those bonds were threatened, they fought harder. When friends were lost, they fought with greater determination to protect the survivors. "General," Choi Yuna said quietly, "I've been analyzing their global communication networks. Humans argue and disagree about almost everything. Politics, religion, economics, social issues. They have constant conflicts over resources and territory. That sounds normal, Park Ji-hoon replied. All species have internal competition. But here's what's strange, Choi Yuna continued. When they face external threats, all those disagreements disappear instantly. Humans who were enemies yesterday become allies today if they're threatened by outsiders. She showed them historical examples. Human nations that had been at war for generations, suddenly cooperating when faced with natural disasters or common enemies. Political opponents working together during crises. Religious groups that normally competed joining forces to help disaster victims. It's like they have two different social systems, she explained. Internal competition that drives progress and innovation, but instant unity when threatened by external forces. Kang Min-ho stared at the data, beginning to grasp the true implications of what they had discovered. The Empire had faced many different species over the centuries. Some were individually strong but poorly organized. Others were well-disciplined but lacked innovation. A few had advanced technology but weak social structures. But humans seemed to combine all the advantages with none of the weaknesses. They were individually creative and adaptable, socially cooperative when needed, technologically innovative, and culturally united by bonds that went deeper than government authority. We need to observe them more closely, he told his crew. Focus on their daily life in peacetime. I want to understand what holds their society together. As the silent hunter moved to observe human civilian populations, Kang Min-ho realized that his reconnaissance mission had revealed something far more dangerous than anyone in the Empire had imagined. Humans were not weak. They were not divided. They were not primitive. They were something entirely new, a species that had learned to combine individual freedom with collective strength. And that combination might make them unstoppable. General Kang Min-ho decided to observe human society during what they called peaceful times. The silent hunter moved to monitor several different cities across the planet. What he discovered there completed his growing understanding of why humans were unlike any species the Empire had ever encountered. In the first city, he watched human children attending education facilities. Imperial education focused on obedience, discipline, and specialized job training. Young citizens learned their assigned roles in society and were taught not to question authority. Human education was completely different. Children were encouraged to ask questions about everything. They explored subjects that interested them personally. Teachers praised students who thought of new solutions to old problems. Most shocking of all, human children were taught to challenge ideas and think for themselves. This should create chaos, Lieutenant Park Ji-hoon observed. How can a society function if citizens are trained to question authority? Maybe it does create chaos, Navigator Choi Yuna suggested. Maybe that's why they have so many different governments and political systems. But as they continued observing, Kang Min-ho realized that human diversity was actually a source of strength. Different groups tried different approaches to problems. When one method failed, others were ready with alternatives. Their society adapted and evolved constantly instead of following rigid patterns. The next revelation came while watching human work environments. In the Empire, workers were assigned specific tasks and expected to perform them exactly as instructed. Innovation was discouraged because it could disrupt planned production schedules. Human workers did something remarkable. They improved their jobs while doing them. Engineers modified designs to work better. Factory workers suggested more efficient processes. Even simple laborers found ways to complete tasks faster or safer than the original instructions required. They're redesigning their own society in real time, Choi Yuna said with wonder. Every human is constantly trying to make things work better. This explained something that had puzzled Imperial intelligence reports. Human technology advanced much faster than should have been possible for such a young species. They had gone from simple tools to space travel in just a few thousand years, while most species took tens of thousands. The reason was clear now. Humans didn't just use technology, they constantly improved it. Every individual contribution combined with others to create rapid advancement. Their entire species worked like a single research and development project. But the most disturbing discovery came while observing human families and social relationships. Kang Min-ho watched parents caring for children, friends helping each other, and strangers showing kindness without any expectation of reward. In imperial society, citizens helped each other because the state required it. Social cooperation was maintained through laws, surveillance, and punishment for selfish behavior. People worked together because they had no choice. Human cooperation appeared to be voluntary. Parents sacrificed for children because they loved them. Friends supported each other through personal bonds. Communities helped members in need because they chose to do so, not because they were forced. This level of social cohesion should be impossible without external control, Park Ji-hoon said. What prevents humans from abandoning cooperation when it becomes difficult or costly? The answer came while observing a simple human ceremony in a small town. A young man named An Min-jae was joining his life with a woman named Song Hyeri in what humans called marriage. Family and friends had traveled from across the continent just to witness this moment. Kang Min-ho watched the celebration with fascination. The ceremony had no political purpose, no economic benefit, and no military significance. People had spent considerable time and resources to attend, gaining nothing tangible in return. Yet the joy and connection he observed were more powerful than anything he had seen in imperial society. These humans were bound together by emotions and relationships that no government had created and no authority could control. They don't serve the state, he realized aloud. They serve each other, sir? Choi Yuna asked. Imperial citizens obey because the empire is powerful enough to force obedience, Kang Min-ho explained. But human cooperation comes from personal bonds that make them want to help each other. That's why they fight so hard. They're not protecting a government or territory. They're protecting the people they love. This revelation changed everything about the tactical situation. The empire had conquered other species by defeating their governments and military forces. Once central authority collapsed, resistance crumbled quickly. Citizens who had been forced to obey their leaders saw no reason to continue fighting for them. But humans were different. Their society was held together by millions of individual relationships rather than centralized authority. Destroying their governments would not break their resistance. It would make them fight harder to protect their families and communities. As the silent hunter prepared to depart Earth, Kang Min-ho realized he was carrying information that would shock the Empire's leadership. Everything they believed about conquest, civilization, and intelligent behavior was wrong when applied to humans. General, Park Ji-hoon said as they left Earth's atmosphere, what will you tell the Emperor? Kang Min-ho stared at the blue planet shrinking behind them. He thought about Kim Tae-hyun refusing to abandon someone in danger. He remembered An Min-jae and Song Hyeri surrounded by people who loved them. He considered the millions of humans who helped disaster victims without being ordered to do so. I will tell him the truth, Kang Min-ho said quietly. These humans are not like other species. They don't fight because they're forced to fight. They don't cooperate because they're required to cooperate. Everything they do comes from choices they make freely. But sir, Choi Yuna said carefully, the Emperor expects information about how to conquer them. What weaknesses should our forces target? What tactics will break their resistance? Kang Min-ho was quiet for a long time. Finally, he spoke words that would change the course of galactic history. Their weakness is also their strength, he said. Humans fight for each other instead of for conquest or glory. That makes them vulnerable because they care about casualties and losses. He paused, considering the full implications of what he had learned. But it also makes them unbeatable. When you fight humans, you're not fighting soldiers following orders. You're fighting people defending everything they love. And people fighting for love will never surrender, never retreat, and never give up. The journey back to Nexus Prime would take several days. During that time, Kang Min-ho knew he had to decide what report to give the Empire's leadership. He could provide tactical information that would help Imperial forces conquer Earth. He could identify human weaknesses that could be exploited for quick victory. Or he could tell them the truth about what he had really discovered, that humans represented a kind of strength the Empire had never encountered before, and that attacking them would be the greatest mistake in Imperial history. As the silent hunter jumped to faster-than-light travel, Kang Min-ho made his decision. The Empire demanded war, but what he had seen on Earth convinced him that this war could destroy them all. The question now was whether anyone would listen to what he had learned, or whether the Empire's leaders would ignore his warnings and proceed with their planned conquest. Either way, the galaxy was about to change forever. The Great Hall on Nexus Prime was filled with excitement. 3,000 Imperial warships hung in orbit above the capital world, ready for conquest. 1 million soldiers waited in their barracks for orders to board transport vessels. The greatest military force in galactic history was prepared to crush the small blue planet called Earth. General Kang Minho stood before the War Council once again. His reconnaissance mission was complete, and the Empire's leaders eagerly awaited his tactical assessment. Admiral Zethvar drummed his 6 fingers impatiently on the crystal table. General Morgux sharpened his claws while waiting for the meeting to begin. Commander Veltar clicked his mandibles in anticipation of easy victory. Emperor Vorthak entered the hall with golden light pulsing through his crystalline form. He was pleased that the waiting was finally over. Soon, Earth would join the Empire's collection of conquered worlds, and its resources would serve Imperial needs. "My generals," the Emperor announced, "today we plan the final conquest of the human homeworld. General Kang Minho has returned with complete intelligence about their defenses and weaknesses." The assembled military leaders leaned forward in their seats. They had been planning this invasion for weeks, but they needed detailed information about human capabilities before launching their attack. "General Kang Minho," Vorthak commanded, "present your findings. Tell us how to break human resistance quickly and completely." Kang Minho approached the central podium where his tactical report waited in the holographic display system. Around him, dozens of the Empire's most powerful military commanders prepared to hear about human weaknesses, defensive positions, and strategic vulnerabilities. He activated the display, showing images of Earth's cities, military installations, and orbital facilities. Everything looked exactly as primitive and defenseless as the initial reports had suggested. "The human homeworld has 8 billion inhabitants," Kang Minho began in his usual quiet voice. "Their military forces are small and poorly equipped compared to Imperial standards. Their weapons technology is several centuries behind our own. Their space defenses are minimal." Approving murmurs filled the hall. This was exactly what the generals wanted to hear. "Their largest armies have fewer than 2 million active soldiers," he continued. "Their fastest ships cannot exceed light speed. Their strongest weapons cannot penetrate Imperial battle armor." Admiral Zethvar slammed the table with all 6 arms. "Excellent. My fleet alone could destroy their entire military in one day. Give me their primary targets and I will burn them from orbit." "Not so fast," General Morgux interrupted. "The Emperor assigned this conquest to me. My ground forces will occupy their cities and force their surrender properly." Other generals began arguing about who would get the honor of destroying human resistance. They spoke about orbital bombardment, ground invasions, and psychological warfare designed to break enemy morale. But Emperor Vorthak noticed that General Kang Minho had not finished his report. The quiet general stood at the podium, waiting for the noise to die down. His expression was strange, not the confident look of someone delivering good news to his superiors. "Continue, General," the Emperor ordered. The hall fell silent. Kang Minho looked around the room at all the eager faces. These creatures represented the most successful military force in known history. They had conquered thousands of worlds and subjugated hundreds of species. They had never encountered serious resistance from any enemy. "Your Majesty," he said, speaking so quietly that everyone had to lean forward to hear him, "there is something else you need to know about humans." "What is it?" Vorthak demanded. "Speak clearly." General Kang Minho took a deep breath. What he said next would either save the Empire from disaster or end his military career forever. "They don't fight for conquest," he whispered. "They don't fight for glory or territory or resources." His voice was barely audible in the vast hall. "They don't even fight for survival." The Emperor's crystalline form shifted from gold to puzzled blue light. "Then why do they fight?" "They fight for each other," Kang Minho replied, his quiet words somehow carrying absolute authority. "And that makes them unbeatable." Confused, angry sounds erupted throughout the hall. Admiral Zethvar stood up, waving his arms wildly. "What does that mean? How can fighting for others make them stronger?" "Nonsense," shouted General Morgux. "All species fight for survival when threatened. These humans will surrender just like every other conquered race." But General Kang Minho continued speaking in that same quiet voice that somehow cut through all the noise. "I watched human rescue workers risk their lives to save strangers during natural disasters. I saw soldiers disobey direct orders to protect civilians they had never met. I observed parents sacrifice everything for their children without expecting any reward." The hall grew quieter as the generals tried to understand what they were hearing. "Your Majesty," Kang Minho said, looking directly at the Emperor, We have conquered many worlds by defeating their governments and destroying their military forces. Once central authority collapsed, resistance ended quickly. Citizens who were forced to obey their leaders saw no reason to continue fighting. Emperor Vorthak's crystal body pulsed with red warning light. He sensed that his most trusted general was about to deliver very bad news. But humans are different, Kang Minho continued. Their society is not held together by government control or military force. It's held together by billions of personal relationships, families, friendships, communities, bonds of love and loyalty that no authority created and no power can break. Lieutenant Park Ji-hoon and Navigator Choi Yuna stood behind their general, ready to support whatever he said next. They had seen the same things on Earth, and they knew he was telling the truth. If we attack Earth, Kang Minho said, his voice growing stronger, we will not face 8 billion separate individuals who can be defeated one by one. We will face 8 billion humans fighting as one unified force, each one determined to protect everyone they care about. That's impossible, Admiral Zethvar protested. No species can maintain that level of coordination without central command. Humans can, Kang Minho replied simply, because their coordination doesn't come from commands. It comes from love. And love makes them stronger, not weaker. The silence in the Great Hall was complete now. Every general, every admiral, every commander was trying to understand what they were being told. They will not surrender, Kang Minho said, because surrender means abandoning those they love. They will not retreat because retreat means leaving others in danger. They will not break because breaking means failing the people who depend on them. Emperor Vorthak stared at his most reliable general. Are you telling me that these primitive humans cannot be conquered? I am telling you, Kang Minho said quietly, that if we attack Earth, we will discover what it means to fight an entire species that becomes stronger through loss, more determined through suffering, and more dangerous through love. He paused, looking around the hall at all the powerful beings who had never known defeat. We have never faced an enemy like this, Your Majesty. We have conquered species that were stronger than us, smarter than us, and more advanced than us. But we have never fought a species that fights for each other instead of for themselves. The Emperor's crystal form cycled through different colors as he processed this information. Red anger, blue confusion, gold consideration, and finally deep purple fear. What do you recommend, General? Vorthak asked. General Kang Minho straightened to full attention. I recommend that we do not attack Earth, Your Majesty. I recommend that we make peaceful contact and treat humans as equals rather than subjects. Because if we go to war with them, we will learn why love is stronger than conquest. The Great Hall erupted in arguments and protests. Some generals accused Kang Minho of cowardice. Others demanded his arrest for defying imperial policy. A few wondered if his report could possibly be accurate. But Emperor Vorthak raised one crystal hand, and silence returned to the hall. General Kang Minho, he said slowly, you have served the Empire faithfully for many years. Your tactical assessments have always been correct. If you believe these humans are too dangerous to attack, the Emperor paused, his crystal body pulsing with deep purple light, then perhaps we should listen to your wisdom. Hours later, the order went out to all Imperial fleets. The invasion of Earth was cancelled. The war that could have destroyed both civilizations would never happen. And somewhere in the depths of space, 8 billion humans continued their daily lives, never knowing how close they had come to facing the greatest military force in galactic history. They also never knew that their greatest strength, their love for each other, had saved them, without a single shot being fired. Years later, when the Empire finally made peaceful contact with Earth, Human Ambassador Yoon Seojin met with General Kang Minho on a neutral space station. The human thanked him for preventing a war that would have cost millions of lives on both sides. Why did you stop the invasion? Yoon Seojin asked. Kang Minho smiled, an expression he had learned from studying humans. Because I saw Kim Tae-hyun refuse to abandon someone in a collapsing building. And I realized that if we came to your world as conquerors, we would find 8 billion humans just like him. The ambassador nodded in understanding. Would you like to